So welcome to session two, Why Insights Matter. My name is Andy Smith. I right now am the lead consumer insights person for Flowers Foods. You may not have heard us before, but you've probably heard of some of our brands. So we're the producers of Nature's Own, #1 brand in the United States, Dave's Killer Bread, Wonder Bread, and on the snack side, we make Tasty Cake and Mrs. Freshly's. Been in the insights industry for about 30 some odd years. And I've had the pleasure of working with some of America's most beloved brands and helping develop advertising campaigns for all of them. So prior to Flowers, I'd spent about 12 years with Hershey. I spent time with Nabisco, M&M Mars, and Johnson Wax. So I'm going to get us on screen share, and we will go through the asynchronous learning for this class. So the agenda, a very quick recap of what Rob spoke to last week, what the goals for this session are, reinforce why insights matter and their role in developing great creative. And then something different for this class is one of the brands that I just mentioned we worked on is Nature's Own. So when this is over, the second asynchronous learning plan will actually be going over kind of history of Nature's Own, where it stood 4 or 5 years ago, why it needed to do advertising to become more relevant, and then the research journey we took to give the creatives the advertising necessary to come up with some really powerful creative. And as we go through other modules, we'll link the journey into better advertising with research done along the way to, optimize the advertising, validate and improve the advertising will work in market. So something different. We're going to actually have a real life example for this class. So what Rob taught last week is why insights are critical to marketing, reinforced from the foundational course what the definition of an insight is, kind of how this course will work and what is expected of you. And then for this session, what we're going to try to do is establish why an insight is important for advertising, one that's relevant for the target, and one that differentiates your brand from other brands. And we'll analyze the insight and its role within advertising campaigns, kind of, and evaluate how insights drive relevancy and distinction. One of the things I've been working with from the ARF perspective last couple of years is the Creative Council. And there's kind of two really interesting learnings that have come out of it recently. One is, obviously media and your research budget's very important, but more and more learning is telling us that it is actually the creative that has the biggest impact in terms of sales lift from advertising. And some interesting findings that have come up recently is the amount of advertising out there that actually grows competitive brands more than it grows the brand it was meant to is astonishing, and a better understanding of insights would keep that from happening. And the other interesting thing we've been working on is there's a lot of friction in the advertising world between the creatives at ad agencies and those that conduct market research. And despite all the love-hate relationship and different definitions of what research is and is not needed, the one area that everyone agrees on is having a good insight is critical for the development of great advertising. And just as important, the earlier in the process you can get those insights, the more apt you're to have great advertising, breakthrough advertising that really drives sales. So you went through the foundational class, and I believe last period, kind of what an insight is. And it kind of lives at this intersection of brand, the consumer, and more cultural context. Really important when you're hearing so much these days about brand purpose. Brand purpose is really driven by an understanding of, again, brand and consumer within this larger cultural context. So I think kind of an interesting example, and it's a kind of a hybrid communication innovation, but the candy converter from Reese. And I know on the comments section, there's been a lot of discussion, is insight art or science? And from a science perspective and a data perspective, 90% of people actually wish they could swap their Halloween candy. But the insight there The art is from spending time with people who are doing trick or treating. One of the things you instantly see, whether it's when they get back home or it's with their friends, swapping of candy. You get something you don't like and you swap it for something you do like, kind of a universal truth for trick or treating. And when you're the number one candy brand like Reese's, $2 billion brand, you can actually use that to your advantage. More people are swapping in Reese than trading it for something they like. So kind of an interesting kind of hybrid 90% yes data, but the art of kind of not shopping, but going through trick or treat with people, keeping your eyes open to the behavior, understand what's going on, leveraging with brand. I think it's a great insight into how creative can be developed. So two of the videos I asked for you to watch, one was that kind of montage of COVID where every ad was kind of reinforcing the same thing. None of it was kind of grounded in what the brand stands for. So was it cultural? Yes. Was it relevant for their brand? Perhaps. But was it unique to that brand? Definitely not. And my guess is most of those brands probably, back to earlier points made, kind of increased sales and relevancy for competitors more than for themselves. Now contrast that for the ad you got to watch for Apple. Creativity goes on. Two things that are very interesting there is one, whether it was an iPhone, iPad, or a Mac, throughout the video, the iconic products for Apple were on display and being used. And two, think about creativity and Apple. They've gone together since Apple was invented, since Steve Jobs came out of the gate. It's also something that they solely own. Samsung could not have done that for their mobile phones. Dell could not do that for their computers. Creativity and Apple are joined into hip. So I think it's just a great example of, cultural moment, lockdowns, COVID doesn't have to kill creativity, understanding the brand, understanding the consumer, coming up with an ad that's both powerful and relevant to just their brand versus any brand in their space. So the other ad I asked you to watch, video number 3, was an ad for Kisses. And it was built on this understanding of the brand from a consumer perspective. And Kisses is a very interesting brand in the candy space because nothing else looks like it. Part of its brand equity, basically the mental model you have for Kisses is that unique shape. They could put a billboard out there with just the silhouette of a Hershey Kiss. You would know what brand that is. The other interesting thing is the way it's wrapped. It has that little tin wrap. And from an insights perspective, you talk to consumers, they'll explain and they'll use their hands. It's like unwrapping a gift, each one of them. And it's foil, right? It's foil, which makes it a little more special. And then it's chocolate. And, think about chocolate. One, you give it as gifts, but it's just almost universally loved. People love chocolate. And as you were watching that video, all three of those elements, all those elements are shown, the silhouette, the foil, kind of unwrapping the note there. And what that means is, unlike other brands out there, all these elements come together to basically develop a brand, Hershey Kisses, that ladders up to a brand that brings people together. And again, in the video, as people are getting these Hershey Kisses falling from the sky, you see them hugging and interacting with both family and strangers. And that's the power of Kisses. That's the brand. That's how the consumers use it. And the cultural context is, time when we tend to be to ourselves. We have our earphones on and we're listening to our iPhones and ignoring the rest of the world. Kisses is one of those rare brands that can bring people together. So now contrast that to, I think, is one of the most emotionally powerful ads out there, which was the World's Toughest Job. And, just asking you guys, were any of you not tearing up at the end when, the reveal of, well, that job is for moms? The problem with that ad is, if we go to the end of this course and I ask you, remember that World's Toughest Job? My guess is most of you will probably say, oh, it's for Hallmark, because Hallmark has a much stronger association with greeting cards. And it wasn't until the very end that they put American Greetings in there. You really didn't see it throughout. You have no idea what it's for. So by the time you're going through this emotional epiphany, I love this, and it's for a greeting card company, you're probably thinking Hallmark. And it's not till very late that American Greetings come in. There's nothing about that ad that made it ownable for American Greetings. So great insight into the power of mom, cultural context, just how powerful moms is on our society, but that understanding of the brand and able to weave that into the story was just lost. So you have a fantastically emotional, moving ad that probably sold more Hallmark Mother's Day cards than it did American Greetings cards. So, and final kind of cultural context ad is the Share the Load from Ariel, obviously from India. And what they were trying to do is, the culture of India, the women tend to do more of the housework. How do you change that? And through the father's eyes, seeing his daughter go through the way he treated his wife was an eye-opening moment. What differentiates this from the American Greetings ad is you see the Ariel right there. They're hanging around, daily chores, but it's the washer and dryer. It's something that it's Ariel, it's their category, their brand is front and center. They own it. It's easier to sit there and make the association, an emotional experience, Ariel, purpose, brand, consumer. So that's the end of this. Next is if you could watch the video on Nature's Own, kind of take you through this similar journey on how we started getting to where we are now within Nature's Own and the ads we have. So thank you.